I love this question. I feel like this is the perfect question. This is a great question too. This question can be very triggering to some. I'm not afraid to say it. Ciao amorini! Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. It's been a hot minute since A, I filmed in English, I feel like, and B, I've done a sit-down video. I've been just cranking away at the vlogs lately and I wanted to have little sit-down update chats with you because I love them. Oh, I just hit my tooth. I've got my coffee this morning. A while back I asked you all on Instagram and here on YouTube to ask me questions, ask me anything, and I do receive a lot of repeat questions every time I do a video like this, but I feel like a lot of you may be new and haven't seen my previous questions and answers, so I will actually link a playlist down below in the description box if you're interested in seeing any of my previous questions and answers videos. I've done many, I feel like, and life has changed along the way. Let's just get into the questions. Like, if you're new here, hello, welcome, ciao. I'm so happy to have you here. If you don't know, I'm from the States, but I now live in Florence, Italy, and I've lived in Italy total for about 4 years now. I was in Rome beforehand, had a little intermission in the States for a couple of years, and now we're back. We're back. And if you have any questions on that, I have many videos about why, our journey, my past. I'll link those down below. I'm literally gonna just close my eyes and like pick a question at random. I haven't even looked at them yet. Okay. Tips on making friends in a new city. I feel like this is the perfect question because I have lived in many cities in my life. I've lived in many different countries. I want to say I've lived in the US, in Mexico, in New Zealand, in France, in Italy. Am I missing any? I don't think so. And I've had to start over many times. Or even if it's just like a season or like a semester, for example, in university, you are put in situations where you have to meet new friends and you're out of your comfort zone. And it's always hard leaving your comfort zone, leaving your dear friends from home or your family and putting yourself out there. I feel like when you're studying abroad for college, for example, everyone's in the same situation, so everyone's more open to meeting new friends and expanding their circle because they're all displaced and they're all in a new country or in a new city and they're all in a similar situation. Whereas if you uproot your life for work or for love or for anything and you change not even just countries but cities, even if you're in the same country, as an adult especially, I think it's more difficult. The best way I have made friends in a new city is through work, colleagues, but now with post-pandemic and a lot of people working from home and not going to the office, that's a lot more difficult, especially with a lot of new people starting remote. It's like, how do you meet people? As adults, I feel like adults are more, I don't want to say closed to expanding their friend group, but you know, you have your friend group, and the older you get, the less you want to really add to that. I'm all about quality, not quantity, but when you are in a new city and you don't know anybody and all your friends are, you know, kind of spread out all over the world, it's difficult and you're like, oh great, here I have to start over again. I felt like that numerous times in my life, but specifically being 31 when I had moved back to Italy earlier this year in Florence. I didn't know a single soul in Florence, and luckily my job has allowed me to expand my network and make me meet people, and my job makes me get out of my comfort zone. My job is PR, so I have to get out there and I have to put myself out there. So I'm thankful for my job for really allowing that for me, but I think even if I didn't have this job, how I've met other people is through social media, through Instagram, reaching out to them, having no shame. And if you mesh, great. If you click, you meet in real life, if you're comfortable with that. Also, there are tons of Facebook groups. Like, I want to say expats, but even if you're in the same country that you're from, there are many Facebook groups, like, depending on also your hobbies. Like, I don't know, if you love art or music or a sport, I'm sure you can find on Facebook or even online certain clubs for you to go and do that and participate. And I think that those things are really finding your hobbies and your passions and finding a network of people who share that. Online, you can find anything nowadays. So really kind of just explore and put yourself out there and not be scared. I know, especially as adults, I don't know if anyone else suffers from social anxiety. I surprisingly do in certain situations. And you just have to get out of your comfort zone and put yourself out there and not care what people think, and just go up to people and introduce yourself. And not everyone has to be friends with everybody. You can meet an array of people and not necessarily, and leave, you know, having met 10 people and leave really maybe becoming friends with one. And that's fine. You don't have to become friends with everybody you meet. I think a big tip is not to force a friendship, especially with expats or living or moving to a new city. A lot of friendships are created out of comfort and out of... Does anyone else's cat make so much noise when they use a litter box? I don't know. It's like a savage in the litter box. I don't know what he's doing in there. So a lot of friendships when you're an adult and you're in a new city are kind of created out of ease. Like, oh, I'm not, you know, would I be best friends with this person? Like, a lot of friendships are created not because, you know, he definitely just went poop. You know, when cats go number 2 in the litter box, their instinct is to like just run. You may not mesh super well with that person, but you're both in a similar situation. You have nowhere else to turn to or no one else to chat with. So you kind of, that's your go-to person. And I think that that's great if that kind of, that's a great band-aid, but that doesn't work long-term. I've definitely experienced it in my past. And now at this point in my life, I don't have room or time for, you know, frivolous friendships just out of comfort or out of ease. And for me, it's really more the quality over the quantity. Just curious as to what you do for a living. I'm a Jane of all trades. I mean, for those of you who follow me on my YouTube journey, I've done a lot of things since starting the channel, but right now I am in PR, and I'm a PR and influencer marketing manager for a skincare brand who has just expanded their market and has tapped into the Italian market. So I'm kind of, you know, running that here in Italy. I was the first employee here in Italy, and we're slowly growing, which is exciting. But before that, and what really led to this move, was I was a social media manager for that brand. And then after being with them for a couple of years, they were like, hey, we're seeing, like, we want to open and tap into the Italian market. We want someone there. You've been with the company, you know the brand, you have dual citizenship. Would you ever move back to Italy? I have that whole story, I think, in one of my other Q&As. I'll link it down below, but that's what I do. My side hustle is YouTube, and I don't like to say, you know, the word influencer, even though that's my job and I work with influencers. I mean, I guess I'm myself an influencer in a certain way. And so I also do, you know, brand partnerships also. I also kind of see the other side of, it's funny, like, I love what I do for like my day job because I also experience the other side of things, and I also work with brands and do brand partnerships as well on my Instagram and YouTube. So a little bit of both. All right, one question is, would you ever move back to the States? So I always say never say never. We just moved back to Italy. When I lived in Rome, I knew always I would come back to the States. And when I moved back to the States, I genuinely didn't think I would ever move back to Italy until after a while, and I was starting to get, Italy was starting to call me again. I always say never, but I do think that we're in Italy for a while. I'm just a lot, I don't know if you can tell from my content since we've left, but I'm a lot happier here. Me and my husband together are happier here. My husband's Italian. We want to eventually raise kids in Italy. And the hardest part is being away from family and friends in the States, but I know in my heart that this is where we're meant to be right now. That's not to say that we may never live there again in the future. You never know. You never know what life's gonna throw you. And that's up to my next question. Kids? Want kids? Well, first of all, we already do have kids. We've got Barolo left. We have 2 fur babies, Leo and Barolo, a dog and a cat. But this question, and I've talked about this many times on my channel, can be very triggering to some. It's not triggering to me yet. But yes, we do eventually want kids. Everyone's timeline is different, and that question is always asked to me, and I'm just like, what if we didn't want kids? Like, I respect everyone's decisions, whether they want kids or not, and just because you reach a certain age doesn't mean like, okay, like that question has to start coming. And I know you come from a good place and you ask because you want to see that journey and you want me and Emilio to have kids and you want to see how little Sofie Emilio babies would look. I can't wait. I can't wait, but we just have had to kind of set up our life and want to make sure that we're stable and we can give a future child the possibilities of having the things that we want to be able to give them, and just setting up our life for that. Of course, there's never the perfect time to have kids, so it's hard and you can't plan everything, but you can kind of decide when you are ready and when you want to start trying. And let's just say in the next couple of years that is in the cards, hopefully. Cross your fingers, you never know, and I will share that journey with you. What's Italy like to visit in October? Can you still go to the beaches? So this is a great question. I get this asked frequently. Well, we're in November now, but October this year was surprisingly very warm.
Climate change.
So warm. Like just last week, I was in a t-shirt and Birkenstocks outside in the end of October. That's crazy to me. I could have definitely gone swimming. You could still go to the beaches if it is that warm. That's an anomaly, and that typically doesn't happen. The farther south you go, whether like you're in Campania or Calabria or Sicily, you could definitely still go to the beaches. However, a lot of places, especially more of the touristy places, are closed for the season. So like you can go to the beaches, but there won't be services or like beds to rent or things to do or going on. I would say if you don't want to go in the high season of tourists, which is like June, July, August, absolutely not, because that's like when all the Italians go. I think like my favorite time to go is like in May, like late May or early September. Just depends on where you go though. How to deal with anxiety, especially in crowded places. So one of my most recent videos was dealing a day in the life with anxiety. I do have clinical anxiety and I struggle with it every day. Some days are amazing, some days are crippling and I can't even get out of bed. I'll put that video up here. If you're interested in seeing how I dealt with it that day, every day is different. I think it depends. You have to kind of take it day by day and take deep breaths and insert things in throughout the day that help you. Meditation, sports, creative outlet is really helpful and really useful, and actually really dire if you have anxiety. And trying not to look too much farther into the future, and just separating what is a must and what, like, will the world completely fall apart if you don't get one thing done in that one specific day? No? Okay, then you can put that on the back burner and focus on the things that need to be done that day. Crowded places, it's a different type of anxiety. I think it depends, because yeah, I also have, like I mentioned, social anxiety, and it depends on the crowd. There's definitely some times where I'm in a really busy crowd and I'm like, I need to get out of here. Whether it's I have anxiety or I fear that there's going to be something bad that happens, or just being around a lot of people. I think for crowds, you have to just take deep breaths and go where you just go to places, like necessary places, or like take back streets so you're not in the middle of a crowd. I mean, if you're like in a concert or a festival or something, that's different. What helps me in crowds is not giving people eye contact. So I'm sorry if you've ever seen me. I don't do well giving people eye contact, like when I'm walking down the street or when I'm in big crowds. I just like focus on one thing and just like stare at it and like keep going, or like looking down. That helps me. I don't know, don't ask me why, it just does. How are you getting settled in your new home? So, I love this question because it's always a work in progress. Nothing has changed since the last vlog. I think I showed you a vlog of like getting chairs and a few things, tables and things like that. Nothing has changed. However, I did just place another order. All of the light in the ceilings in our home are like just wired, like light bulbs hanging from wires, because we still haven't gotten light fixtures. So I did just place an order, and I got a light fixture for every room in the house and a few more furniture pieces to kind of make it a little more cozy. Right now it's like speaking a little cold to me, just because we need the finishing touches. We need plants, we need pillows and things like that. But I'm really excited because my mom and stepdad are coming for New Year's Eve and staying with us. So that kind of was the fire under my butt to get some of those last minute items. So I'll vlog and I'll share that with you. I know a lot of you have been asking about a final apartment tour, but it's not ready yet. And will it ever be ready? I don't know. But for example, our living room feels so bare because I still don't have artwork. A lot of our art that we brought from the US is still in storage that we need to hang and put up. And then I really want to get a really nice big piece to go over the couch, but I just haven't found the right piece yet. So if you guys have any recommendations, let me know. I eventually will probably, once the artwork is up and once I find a piece for over the couch, I'll probably do a final apartment tour. Favorite cozy restaurant in Florence. I feel like, would you all be interested in a whole separate video on my current favorite restaurants and coffee shops here? That's one of my biggest asked questions, and it's always evolving and it's always changing, but there's a few. I love 13 Gobbi. I mean, it has gotten very touristy, but in the winter, I find it very cozy because it's cold outside. You go in, there's less tourists, more locals, and the food is so good. So I love 13 Gobbi. I love Coquinarios. Love that. There's one location in Fiesole. There's one location in the center. And then I also really love Cantina Tantinori. The garden area is beautiful, but the cozy aspect of it is inside. You feel like you're like in a library. So I love that. That's a little more pricier and upscale. And then I also love Osteria Ganino, which is like very, very casual trattoria, osteria that I love to bring people when they come to visit for lunch or for dinner. And then, so that's in Florence. I have a couple other outside of Florence, like in the countryside. So if you're interested in a whole dedicated video to that, let me know. I think that could be cool. I just was waiting to be here for a while before I could pass judgment on my favorite places. I love this question. What's the biggest sliding doors moment of your life? Okay, wow. God, that question really makes you think. So off the top of my head, I think the biggest sliding doors moment of my life was when I was living in Boston. This was pre-YouTube days. So I was living in Boston. I was working as a sales representative for a travel company. And they were sending me on a trip as like to audit. So every year they send their employees on one trip. And I remember basically they asked the employees to pick like their top 3 destinations, and I had shared my top 3 destinations, and then later on they gave me like my final trip and like where I was going, and they were sending me somewhere I had already been to. And now that I think about it, now that I tell the story, I sound like such a brat. I was bummed just because I had already been to these places that they were sending me to. And I was bummed about it just because I was excited to be working for a travel company, and one of the perks were that they send you to places that you've never been to before. And I was like, oh, I've already been to all these places. What is that? Like, how is that a perk? Yes, that sounds, I know, very ungrateful, and I'm very much aware that in that moment, and now looking back, I'm like, Sofie, little did you know. So long story short, that on that trip is where I met Emilio, and that to me is probably one of my biggest sliding doors moments of my life, because I didn't want to go. I was like bummed that I was going to some place, and we were both on that same trip together because he was also working for the same company, but from the European office, and immediately being drawn to him. But in the beginning it was not like a physical attraction, it was just like this energy attraction. And the second I met him, I was just very drawn to him, and I was like, I want to be his friend. Like, I want to be around that energy. He had really amazing energy, and for the whole trip, we hit it off, but like, he tells it a different way. But for me, it was like friendship, and I really, really just I wanted to be in his presence all the time, and just he made me laugh like I'd never laughed like in my entire life, and just found him very charismatic and caring and funny, and I really wanted to be around him. And so when the trip ended and we had to part ways, we kept it. There was not one day after that we have never talked, and that was what, 8 years ago, which is crazy to think about because we've never not talked for one day in 8 years. I mean, well, we're married now, so I would hope, but you know what I mean? And it flourished that way. Yeah, I think that my biggest sliding doors moment is because that completely changed my life. And had my company sent me somewhere that was on my top 3 choices, I wouldn't have met Emilio. So everything, I mean, that really and you don't realize that everything happens for a reason when you're in the moment, but when you're able to look back and reflect, I'm forever grateful for that crazy, serendipitous trip and moment. My life would be so different, and I would not be sitting here talking to you from Florence, Italy today if that had not happened. Do you have a degree? I'm asking because right now I'm in my final year of studies and deciding where to go next. It's haunting me, so any advice is appreciated. I hear you. I changed my major in university, I think three times. So I feel you on that. There's definitely a lot of like pressure and anxiety of, oh my gosh, this is my final, like graduating with this is like going to set my life up. And maybe in certain countries it is. I think in the States, the beautiful thing is you could have like, I don't know, a math major, but be a people-oriented person and work in communications. I don't think anything, unless you're in a medical field or law, really is set in stone. So try not to put too much pressure on yourself because so much will change no matter what your major is in your life. And I do have a degree. My degree is, I have a Bachelor of Arts in Communications and with a minor in Italian. Now, I will tell you, when I first registered for university, I signed in with an international relations major. And I remember the first week of my freshman year of university, I didn't like the classes. I was like, this is not what I thought international relations was going to be. It wasn't for me. And so after, I think the first, I don't remember the timeline, but shortly after I changed my major to art history because I have always loved art history. I studied it in high school, fell in love, and really had a passion. I studied, I took a gap year after high school and studied a semester at the Sorbonne in Paris and studied Renaissance art and just loved it. And I thought, why would I go to university with an international relations major when I love art and this is my passion? So I changed my major to art history, and I loved it because the foundation to get your major in art history, the first 2 years you have to have like an art foundation, take art classes, and we did sculpting and sketching and painting and learning all of the mediums, and I loved that. I'm such a creative person, and I actually don't use it enough. And then I think I was halfway through university and I was like, okay, I do love this, but I've never really like loved school. I don't like to study. I just have not, and I knew that with an art history major, I had to go to graduate school in order to be taken seriously. Like if I wanted to work in a gallery or work in a museum, like I really had to probably go to graduate school, and it wasn't for me. I was like, I don't want to do this. I graduated college early because I wanted to get it over with. So I took this was a very crucial point in my life because, and it's probably, I always try to say never regret anything, but this is probably one of my biggest regrets. I mean, again, if I had never done this, I wouldn't be where I am now. Everything happens for a reason, but I changed my major my junior year of college from art history to communications because a lot of the courses I was already taking, like for my foundation, went towards a communication major, and I was like, okay, communications, when I graduate and have this major, it will be more broad. I could go into marketing, I could go into PR, I could go into a lot more things than had I had an art history major. Now listen, had I known that having an art history major, but still being a very people-oriented person and could probably still get a job in PR or social media or whatever, at the end of the day, I would have probably continued with that, and who knows where it would have led me to today if I would be working in the art world or where I am now. It's so crazy, especially in the US. My biggest advice if you're in college or you're going to college would be study what you're passionate about, because the rest will follow, you know? If you can't see like a career in the future, like, oh, well, you know, I don't know, if you love history and, or for example, or something, or a language and majoring in that language, like where is that going to lead you? What kind of work are you going to get after that? I mean, I don't know. This is the best advice I can give. I don't know if your parents or you would agree, but this is just from my experience. Don't worry about what job can you get after graduation. Worry about what you're passionate about. What do you want to spend 4 years of your life studying and really getting to know, you know, every bit of that? And then from there, you'll be able to decide. Like, following, if anything, if following your passion will lead to amazing things. So if you're passionate about what you study for 4 years, like college, you only are able to really live that whole experience really just once in your life. Study what you love and what you want, and then the rest will follow. Because changing my major halfway through college, like why would I have done that? Why wouldn't I have continued studying what I love and what I was eager to go to class for and couldn't wait to get into the classroom? When I changed to communications, I was like, oh, this is just so boring. Like, but I know that majoring in this will get me more jobs at the end of the day. Like, no, this has turned into like a long podcast and a long rant. So hope that helps. Do you have any siblings? How often do you hope to visit the US now that you live in Italy? So I'm my parents' only child. My stepdad has 3 children, so I have 3 step siblings. And then my dad got remarried and recently had 2 babies. So he has 1 3-year-old, 4. Oh my God. The pandemic really just totally removed my timeline from my brain. And then my stepmom just had a baby in July. So unfortunately, I haven't gotten a chance to meet the newest edition yet. And with the pandemic, my dad lives in California, so it made it really difficult for us to see each other. So I've only met my half sibling, one of them, once, and she was a little baby. So I am going to go back though and see them in March, which I'm so excited about. It's the age difference is so weird, right? Like I feel like I could be their aunt more than their sister. They feel like nieces to me more because they're little babies. So it's I haven't unfortunately got to spend a lot of time with them. So it's hard. We FaceTime weekly, but it's definitely a different dynamic when you're like 30 years older than your sibling. I don't know if any of you can relate, but it's so difficult because my family is spread out all over the US. So going home is like not going to one place. I think what I'm gonna have to do is my goal is to go back at least once a year, and then hopefully have my friends and family come here once a year so we can see each other twice a year. It's not enough, I know, but thank God for FaceTime now. This is a great question too, because I've talked about this a lot, but do you still have worries about job or financial security in Italy, even though you are working for an American company now? So when I lived in Rome, for many of you who are new to the channel, I was hustling, teaching English, consulting, freelance, YouTube. I was doing many different odd jobs to make ends meet. And I never felt financially secure. Every month was different. And that really contributed to my anxiety and my lack of joie de vivre, because I couldn't really enjoy the moment because I was always constantly thinking like, oh God, like how can I splurge on that? Or it just was, now I do have to say I don't really worry as much because I do have a contract here in Italy. Even though it is an American company, they have a branch in Italy now. So I'm technically employed by an American company, but it also has a branch in Italy, and I, being an Italian citizen, am an Italian employee, so I have an Italian contract, so it's very different actually than it would be in the States. However, I do feel a lot more secure compared to when I lived in Rome with my job and finances, and just we've been able to save a lot more over the last few years. So yes, I do feel a lot more secure and trying to balance, you know, the day-to-day life, but also trying to save, because Emilio and I's goal eventually is to buy something, but we're just not there yet. But yeah, compared to where I was several years ago, yes, much more secure, and I don't worry anymore as much. Let's say as much, everyone worries, but as much. How does life in Florence compare to Rome? I've talked about this numerous times, but it's so different, and all I can say is I'm sorry if you live in Rome, I'm sorry if you're Roman, I'm sorry if you love Rome, but I am so much happier in Florence. And I do think that that's a big part of that has to do with my current, like where I am in this new chapter, like having a job and a stability here, whereas in Rome I didn't have that. If I had had a full-time job in Rome, it may have been different, and I may have felt a different way, but Rome is huge chaos. It's a city for me personally. Like, this is my experience, so don't get offended if this hasn't been your experience, but my experience is just, it's a chaotic city. Nothing rarely ever works. Everything's spread out. You need public transportation to get to places, but yet public transportation is always on strike or never works or is never on time. And it just, I never felt like comfortable in Rome. And in Florence, everything is, God, Florence is so small. Florence is probably the size of the neighborhood that we lived in Rome. You can walk everywhere or bike everywhere. It's a lot more, I think, personally, compared to Rome, a lot more efficient with how things work. Everyone told me, beware of the Florentine people. They're snobby, they're stuck up, but I have not found that to be the case. I don't know. I really don't know if maybe I'm just not like interacting with the right people, but anyone who I've met with, like locals here, have been nothing but kind, and I've just feel like everything's more efficient. The beauty is very different. I mean, Florence is a Renaissance city, whereas Rome, you have like the ancient ruins, and it's just so different aesthetically, but we don't have family in Florence, so that's a little difficult, whereas in Rome, it was a lot more, I did feel more like connected with Emilio's family because one of his sisters is in Rome. But also the expat community here in Florence is huge. So like I've met a lot of expats here more than in Rome. And I don't know, I mean, the life in Florence to me is just a lot more calm and serene. And my heart is in Tuscany forever. So being in Tuscany and so close to the countryside is really nice for us, and we really love it. And I don't know, I just like it a lot more personally, and I'm not afraid to say it. That's just my experience. You know, someone may have had a different experience, but so far we love it a lot more. This is the last question because I think it's fun and lighthearted. What's something you really want to do before this year ends? So we're already in November. We don't have much time left, and this may be a boring answer. It's not like travel or anything like that, but I want to get more into connecting with you all, and I want to get more into content again. I miss it so much, and having a full-time day job makes it so difficult because really the only times I can film or edit or focus on that is, of course, like, you know, really early in the morning before work, or in the evening, or on weekends. And I don't have the time as I used to really fully dedicate. But I miss, like, I love this community that we've created on our little corner of the internet over here, and I love all of you, and I'm so grateful for every single one of you. So something I really want to do is get back into that, and I think it's just been such a crazy year, and I finally feel settled and in a routine and comfortable in my new role at work, and finally, you know, getting things put together here in the apartment, that I finally feel at peace and not overwhelmed and stressed. And so something I would like to do before the year ends is, you know, tap into my creative self a little bit more and put more content out for you. So on that note, please let me know down below in the comments, what would you like to see from me? Like, do you like the vlogs? Do you want to see more sit-down videos like this? What topics would you like for me to tap into and discuss that I haven't before? I really am trying to balance like the Italian language and English language, because a lot of you love my videos in Italian with subtitles. So obviously English comes naturally to me, a lot more natural to me, and it's a lot easier for me to pump out content in English because I don't have to write subtitles or do any of that. But it's you know, I want to hear from you. At the end of the day, this is your channel just as much as it is mine. And I want to be able to put out content that you all are looking forward to see. So, of course, I would love Emilio on this channel more. I always have to beg and plead him to be on my channel, and I respect that he's not comfortable that much out in the content world, but it's so much fun filming with him. So if you have any fun ideas for videos for us to do together, let us know down below as well. And I don't know, a part of me really wants to do Vlogmas, but I know with what time, the schedule, and for filming and editing content to post a video every day is crazy. Like, I'm struggling to post a video every 2 weeks. So, and I also it's a lot of energy to put out if you all aren't interested in that. So would you be interested in Vlogmas? Like, would you be interested in daily vlogs, or maybe I can come up with a schedule where like on certain days of the weeks there are vlogs, like themed vlogs, certain days of the week there's sit-down videos. I need to plan in advance though, so I can like film and edit and make sure that I have like staggered timing. So I don't know, I'm thinking out loud here, but if that's something you're even interested in, I could consider and start working on it. So please let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Thanks so much for making it this far in the video. I really want to do a questions and answers video with Emilio now, that like an updated one, because my last Q&A video with Emilio was life in the US and how is it also for him living in the US being an Italian, and I would love to do an updated one on now how is life for both of us now that we're back. And if you have any questions for both of us or for him specifically on that, please also comment down below. That way I can compile them and try to convince him. Thanks so much. I appreciate every single one of you. You are the reason I keep doing this. I love you all, and until next time, alla prossima. Ciao.